you're still asleep. Good evening. We're thrilled to be here. I'm Larry. This is my wife, Jean, and, well, you know Deborah. We're the Taylors, and we're in Belgium. We have prayer cards. They're free tonight. You're supposed to laugh. They're free tonight, and there's some back on our table. We'd like for you to pick one up and put it by something that you see every day and pray for us. I went to Belgium in 1978 speaking English with a Texas accent. I have not lost that accent, and so I speak French with a Texas accent. And yet God still brings people to Christ because of it. So we're thrilled to represent you. I told the preacher we've been supported for 10 years or so, but it's really because we came here a long time ago, and this church has been very faithful. We're grateful to be your missionary and to represent you in Belgium. I've asked my wife to say something, and then Deborah's going to say something, and then we're going to let you ask some questions.
Okay, my name is Jean, and I surrendered to go to the mission field when I was 14 at youth camp. Probably the reason why Larry and I have such a burden to keep our camps going. But one of the nice things about longevity in the ministry and being on the mission field is the fact that God has allowed me to see slowly but surely a lot of people stepping up and working with us as we go through the ministries. God has blessed me with the opportunity not just to minister in my own church, but also to start a women counseling women ministry all throughout Europe called Heart for Europe. And then he's allowed me to see one of our missionaries step up and help me with that. He's also allowed us to have multilingual camps, multilingual ladies retreats, and which includes 3 or 4, 5 countries, depending on each year. So God has really blessed me with the opportunity of allowing me to have a team of workers that I can count on. And then he's also blessed me to allow 2 of my daughters to come back and work with us.
Hey, I'm Debbie. Ooh, this is loud. I was here 3 years ago, and someone said that feels like yesterday. Yes, it does feel like yesterday. I don't know if I need to get farther away or. One of the privileges of going back to as a second generational missionary, I get to go back home. And I get to minister to the people I grew up with, and I get to minister with people that I knew already. And I get to minister with my parents, so that's also a blessing and it's a curse. More blessing than curses, I promise. What I've loved getting to do is being able to step into the youth and young adults ministries, and watching that absolutely change our church. When I left here from deputation, I went home with a goal to watch my teenagers turn into young adults, and my young adults hopefully turn around and serve in our church. And I've watched not only some of my teenagers turn into young adults and stay in church, I've watched them get married in church and have babies in our church. And in fact, one of them will be preaching this Sunday in our church, and that's a whole super fun story. So if Dad doesn't tell the story, I definitely want to tell the story of how that came about. But our teen group is still going. Our young adult group is growing. We've got a couple Bible studies going a week that we try to disciple them through. And of course, as a missionary, you don't wear just one hat. You don't wear just 2 hats. You wear like 100 hats. And if I sat here and told you every single thing I did in the church, I would look like I'm boasting. But honestly, it's a privilege to be able to just serve and to love on my church and to love on my parents and to come back and get to share that good news with you guys.
Well, without Deborah and her sister, my wife and I couldn't do the work or the ministry in Belgium, I'll be honest. Well, you've reached that age where we've slowed down a little bit. Well, a little bit more than a little bit. And they have come along and helped pick up the slack, and we're very grateful they are there. I'm gonna answer the first question before we open it up. The greatest need we have is not for money. You're probably glad to hear that. The greatest need we have for money is not physical. It's not. We need workers. We need missionaries. Just before we flew back, in fact, one of our good friends went to the hospital. And let me back up a little bit. When we arrived in Belgium in 1978, he and the other missionary that was there drove over to Luxembourg, which is the country right next door, but it's still about a 4 or 5 hour drive, and picked us up and took us to their home. And a week ago, not this past, but the one before that, as we were flying back, he passed on to glory. And that means we have one church without a pastor. That means one more church without a pastor. So our greatest need is for young men, young women to surrender their lives, to go to the mission field and stay the course and come. And you know, like I was reading the other day about the Philippian jailer and all that whole passage, and it started with a vision of a man of Macedonia, and his message was, come over and help us. Well, that's where we are. We need people to come over and help us. Someone asked me, how did you get to Belgium? The smart answer is by airplane. The real answer is, when I got saved, I began to ask God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? Now, I knew what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do and what I was planning to do, because I was sure God was not to the ministry, you know. I was a baseball player and a football player. And I wanted to play, now you're going to laugh, but I wanted to play baseball for the New York Yankees. I still do, by the way, but that's another story. And one night I surrendered to God, said, Lord, whatever you want me to do, I'm going to do it. And the very next day, I got a scholarship to go play baseball at the school I wanted to go to. And my dad came to me and said, I know you got that, but I'd really like for you to go to Bible college for a year. And I looked at him and said, Dad, you do understand how finances work. I mean, if I go on this scholarship, they pay for it. If I go to BBC, which was the only school I knew of at the time, I pay for it. He said, you ought to go to Bible college for a year. Well, I wasn't there very long, and I realized I was where God wanted me to be. God brought this man named Tommy Donahoe into my life. He began to talk to me about Belgium, and the more he talked about Belgium, the heavier my heart got. People that are very modern, people that are not that much different than you and I, that live their whole lives and never hear a clear presentation of the gospel. And God broke my heart for that country. When I met my wife, the first thing I asked her, she wasn't my wife then. When I met my wife, first thing I said, well, God called me to Belgium. And you know, the thing she answered was, well, I surrendered to go to the mission field. So kind of worked out. Not only that, I asked for three things. I wanted a wife that was wanting to go to the mission field. I wanted a wife that could cook good. Got to have your priorities, right? And I wanted one that could play the piano. And she does all that. So God was good. God was good. All right. Do you have anything you are dying to know? Sir. All right.
I would say probably worse. We're dealing with a post-Christian nation. And so their concept of Christianity is a fool's errand. Their idea that science and God cannot actually coexist in the same belief system. The school system actually pushes that disbelief, to be honest. And so they're growing up counterculturally if they're trying to grow up with a faith.
You want to say something? Do you like mine?
I was hollering, so I turned it off. But I think there's a couple of things that have made a difference in the recently. And one is all the turmoil in the Catholic Church, because it's a very Catholic nation, and has turned people against God. And they don't believe, and so they don't want religion, as they put it. So getting them to realize that we're not trying to push religion, we're trying to introduce them to Jesus, is a totally different concept for them. And then add to that the large influx of Muslims in Europe has also given them another reason to not want anything to do with God in so many words. So we are dealing with a very passive people, but a very negative thoughts about God and religion that we didn't have when we went almost 50 years ago.
See, I would say this. Belgium's a very small country. We only have like 10 million people, but we have over 1,500 different kinds of beer. Think about that. And most Belgian men, by the time they reach 30, a large portion of them are alcoholic. They probably drink more beer per capita than any other country in Europe. And that's including the Germans. And the Germans drink a lot. And all this has led to a passiveness and indifference to the things of God. Another question. Yes, ma'am. There are certain topics I'm not supposed to preach on. Abortion, homosexuality, and I try to guard that. But what I do is I read Romans 1 a lot, Exodus chapter 20 that talks about murder, and I don't spend hours on abortion or on homosexuality or LBG, whatever all those letters are. Oh, yes.
Yes, we can.
do. Go ahead.
You have to, if you want to put up, like, preach on the street or something, you need a permit. We've been thrown out of a couple of markets, but they really didn't have the right to do it. We knew that. But just in the name of the Lord, you don't want to leave a bad taste. We will walk away and go elsewhere. That doesn't mean we leave the market. We just leave them. But as a whole, we are allowed to walk around and hand out tracts, but again, if people throw them on the ground and the police see them, they may come and fine us because of the littering that we have caused. So it's not direct. You can't do it, but there are consequences sometimes.
I will say this, though they don't infringe necessarily on speech when you're in the country, during COVID, they came out with some visa restrictions and some laws that they kind of just slid under the rug that are not allowing missionaries to come in. And so they are definitely trying to control who's coming in and doing what.
Belgium is a country that was put together In the 1800s, they took a little bit of Holland and a little bit of France in the region that we're in and stuck it together, and they called it Belgium. And so half the country speaks Dutch, very ugly language. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. Okay, I'm not supposed to say that. And the other half speaks the beautiful language of French. Now, just while we're here, John 3:16. You ready for this? Car Dieu a tant aimé le monde, qu'il a donné son Fils unique, afin que quiconque croit en lui ne périsse point, mais qu'il ait la vie éternelle. Y'all. Go ahead. This is what it's supposed to sound.
Car Dieu a tant aimé le monde qu'il a donné son Fils unique, afin que quiconque croit en lui ne périsse point, mais qu'il ait la vie éternelle.
There's a little difference. Someone else. Do we answer your question? All right, thank you. Someone else. Yes, ma'am.
What's like the cost of living?
All right, I'll go to the boss.
Okay, some things are basically the same. I think that if you were going to go in the way of food costs and things like that, I don't think they're a lot different. Meat is much more expensive, but your vegetables and fruits are probably less. Belgians, if you want fast food, if you want chips, if you want prepared foods, boxed foods, cake mixes and things like that, they're going to be a lot more expensive. But if you cook like a Belgian does, which is from scratch, and you buy a cauliflower, not a frozen one or a one with, doctored up, or if you just go buy apples, you're not buying apple sauce or apple compost, then it's going to be probably less. So therefore, the cost of living would be comparable, except for the fact that your utilities are going to be quite a bit higher, and gas is going to be higher. Mm-hmm. So the things that the government has their hand in and can put a tax on is going to be pretty high, because it's our food only has a 6% tax on it, where a car would have 33. Mm-hmm. And a can of Coke will have 33 because they don't think you need that. So,
Couple numbers for you. Our income tax is 51%.
Yeah, that's income.
Our food tax is 6%, and everything else is a 21% tax. On top of that, our cost of living in terms of housing, you're looking at least $2,000 a month per rent for a 4-bedroom home. Your gas is $8 a gallon. However, because we're in a socialistic country, I get to pay $200 a year for my health insurance. Mm-hmm. So there are some things that are cheaper, some things that are more expensive.
The exchange makes a big difference. I'll just tell you that. If your support comes in and how much they're going to take off the top for the exchange is what makes a big difference on the living expense.
When the dollar and euro when the dollar met the euro, it was $1 for every €1. Now $1's worth about 80 euro cents. So, yeah. Yes, sir. Truth? Let me let my daughter answer that one.
Actually, it's one of the things I've enjoyed working with young adults and such. They are looking for something, especially Gen Z, are coming in looking for answers that their parents didn't have. And they're looking at it and saying, money isn't gonna make it, because there isn't any in our generation. And my putting myself through my own bootstraps isn't gonna bring me happiness, because they're watching their parents be unhappy and depressed and on burnout and everything else. And so they are looking for answers. They're not always gonna be the first place to go, church, but they're looking for community. And so that is one of our biggest draws, to be honest. When we do Thanksgiving or when we do just community events, bringing them in, their first feeling is, oh, this feels like home. This feels like love. This feels like peace. And this feels like family. And I'm not going to get them because they have a need, because they don't. They don't have financial need. I know that they talk about the fact that the banks, the savings accounts of the Belgians can pay off the national debt in 2 days. And so that they don't have that issue. But they do have just a hole that they're trying to fill with alcohol, that they're trying to fill with drugs, that they're trying to fill with sex, that they're trying to fill with everything that media tells them is going to fill it. And when that comes away empty and bare, they start looking for answers.
Let me tell you, lady, that just a little story real quick, and I think it explains where we are. My daughter, my other daughter, Andrew's mother, reached her at school. She was the Catholic religion teacher at my daughter's school, and she started coming to our church. Literally, she sat down. She would walk to the back where my daughter was helping in the sound system, sit on the step, and cry all the way through services. She never finished a song. Nobody could. She walked in. She said, "Don't have anybody talk to me." We all kind of, I tried to explain to the church people, "Don't talk to this lady. She doesn't want to be talked to." But they're all going, "But she's crying," you know. And it's kind of like, have you ever had a dog that attracts a child that's crying? This is why our church people, and we're going, give her her space. And she came to us almost a year like that. Suicide is the #1 cause of death for young adults.
Every
And
45 minutes.
Depression is in style. So we are constantly dealing with people that have lost all hope. The home has long since been gone, and they do not know the Lord. They may know religion, but they don't know Lord. And therefore they are very depressed, unhappy people. And so the first thing we are trying to do is go into them and let them see that Jesus loves them. They are not afraid of hell, because they probably don't really believe in it. So what they are afraid of is being alone and dying alone.
Someone else? Yes, sir. We do have homeless, but Belgium is a socialist country. So they do have shelters, a lot of shelters. And if somebody wants the basic people that live on the street are those that have come in illegally from the Far East or Mid-East or whatever, and they can't get into the shelters because they're undocumented. But it's not that bad where we are.
Even downtown, there are homeless people in soup kitchens and shelters, and but like you said, most of the time, if you come in the right way, even if you're coming in undocumented but you seek asylum, because we are an asylum country, they will give you income, a place to stay, a roof over your head, some food, and if you do it right, most people who are looking to really come in and stay, because they're running away from their government or they're running away from something, they do it right and they get what they need. But like he said, the ones who are coming in and are trying to either make money at begging, or they're there, but there's not hundreds and thousands of them.
So it's hard to live outside when it rains about 300 days of the year.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's also true.
The northern part of the country is Flemish, and they are very xenophobic.
Yeah.
They do not like foreigners.
No.
They have enough control of the government that they have forced out missionaries that have been there for years.
Yeah.
And they really don't like foreigners being there. Now, we're fortunate. We have papers. We got our cards years ago, and we have lived in the same area since 1984. So we are known in our community, and so we don't have a problem staying there, but we do have a problem getting people in. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And in fact, I would even say it's probably easier to see our doctors than it is to see your guys' doctors. I regularly will call my doctor and be like, hey, I need to get in. And she'll be like, okay, come in tomorrow. And it's like a $20 copay. And in fact, most people, unless you are truly like bleeding out or there's a high sense of emergency, that's who you're going to go see. You're going to go see a doctor. You're not going to go see the emergency unless it's an actual emergency. So that is a good thing. And because everybody legally has to have health insurance, people are staying up to date with their health insurance, and they promote, it'll be cheaper on your insurance if you go once a year and get your checkups, and if you go to the dentist once a year. And so they really do push that, and to the point that I would almost say that Belgians are kind of hypochondriacs a little bit.
They are socialists now. Jean needed to see a specialist and cardiologist, and she had to wait, I think, nearly a year to get an appointment. So, and she just missed it again. So, yes, ma'am.
No, go ahead.
So you say everyone is really, they're seeking community, and I heard you say community type events like Thanksgiving. So your ministry outside of a Sunday, our typical Sunday service, outside of the Sunday, what ministries do you do to reach the community, like the Thanksgiving? What does it look like? And I'm sure there's a ton, but I was just curious.
We were involved the Sunday before we left in a community fair, information fair. We have a booth. In fact, we have two booths. We have one for Deborah and her young people, and then one for the normal people. And well, they're people.
Apparently, they don't like me throwing bags at them.
They're wild. The group over there. Anyway, we have a young man that just was saved
A year ago?
a year and a half ago.
Yeah, something like that.
And he came because his girlfriend wouldn't go out with him until he came to church. And he got saved, they got married, and so I started talking to him about teaching. Put him in discipleship, and started talking to him about teaching. Well, he's preaching 3 times while I'm gone. And his name is Arno. And he is the most excitable person that you'll ever meet. Always has a smile, always is encouraging, always ready to do whatever needs to be done. And so he's been a real encouragement to us.
So that's not the only thing we do. That's one of we have probably 4 really big events that we do per year. Thanksgiving is one of them, where we have anywhere between 80 to 100 people. And a lot of first-time visitors. We do Christmas, which is a family experience where we have stations and a nativity and all of that, and we invite community families to come. And then we have the community fair, like he talked about, which is an amazing opportunity where the community puts it on, and they ask anybody who's in the city to come out and to represent themselves so that the people know what's in the community. And so people are there to find out about us. So it's like free publicity. It's great. And then we have a flea market that happens in June, where we get to take over like practically an entire parking lot, raise some funds for youth camp, but also just give away stuff and talk to people. And we open up our doors so they can use the toilets. Give away cups of coffee.
That's bathrooms.
Did I not say that?
No toilets. They don't use toilets in America. I've been corrected.
Bathrooms. Places where you go to the bathroom. Anyways, and so those are like our really big events that our church all gets together and takes care of. Outside of those big events, we do have a lot of other little community outreaches. Once a month, we do a game night where I personally bring my 150,000 games that I own, and put them for people to play. And we have youth nights. We have Bible studies. I mean, we probably have a Bible study every night of the week, except for Fridays, which Dad does men's, Mom does women's, and I have 2 separate Bible studies where I'm doing young adults.
Why don't, we also have an extensive ladies program.
Yep.
We do ladies retreats in 3 different languages for 4 different countries. We also do camps. We'll have junior camp, senior camp, young adult camp. So our camps run for over 3 weeks, and that's in July. And then we also
I need
have,
to make the commercial.
okay.
Our camp needs help. If you have a team that you want to send over, we'd love to have you come. But if you don't have a team and you just want to send us some money for helping with our camp ministry, we work with a lot of refugees who can't afford to come. And we have our goal, we say is no one is going to be left behind because they don't have finances. Yeah. And when that happens, most of the funds to pay for their camp comes from our pockets, Deborah's, mine, or Rebecca's. Last time we had 3 young people that had just started coming to church, and they said, well, we want to go to camp. And I mean, we were like within 10 days. And I'm going, I don't, short month, small month. And I said, all right, we'll do it. Well, we had a visiting preacher there that day. And didn't ask him, just was talking to the people about it. And they said, well, Pastor, I don't know. Well, this guy came up to me afterwards and said, as soon as I get off the plane, I'm going to send you $1,000, which paid for those 3 kids to go to camp. And those 3 kids that went to camp, they were refugee kids, and all 3 of them got saved. Yep. So if you have any extra funds
Or extra hours, we'd love to have you.
One of the other things I was just going to tell them about was a Heart for Europe, as I mentioned earlier, is an organization that we've organized to train national wives as well as missionary wives to do biblical counseling because of the depression, the suicide, homosexuality, the cutting, and all those things we find ourselves needing to work with. And what our goal is to have a Google Drive where as we translate this material, the different books, the different things, we actually put them on the Google Drive in all the different languages. So if someone's in Germany, they can go get it in German. If somebody is in France, it's French-speaking country, they can come get it in French. Or if somebody is Spanish-speaking, they can go get it in Spanish. Making this material available so that everybody's not translating everything themselves personally. And that is just something we're trying to get going, and God has blessed it. Started in my living room with 5 ladies. We had over 60 and this year in Austria.
We're going to be back at the table. And if you have any more questions, please come by and talk with us, and we'll spend as much time as we need to. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm always encouraged when I see older missionaries like this. I was thinking, Larry, for 29 years old, you look really good. It's hard to believe you've been there 48 years and you're only 29. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, Miss Jean, but Larry, you 74. I was thinking at 74 years old, if he can still be on the mission field and he can still be serving God, working in youth camps, and just being involved in everything that goes with ministry, why can't we? I think this is a testimony. This is a good reminder to us. If you got these senior saints that are giving all that they have to the Lord, I think we can be doing the same thing. Heart for Europe, Sherry Notes is in that, right? Yeah, we support the Notes. In fact, they're with us. They'll be staying in the house. They stay there every November. They'll be there in November. But Jurgen and Sherry, they're part of that. I remember Mary was invited to it, but then we came back and COVID and all that. Debbie, 2nd generation missionary. That's really cool. I think sometimes, I gotta be honest, I've been guilty of this, and you think, oh, it's easy for you to go home. Actually makes more sense, because you don't have the cultural changes, and you can just fit right into the culture, and it's really a blessing. And I think that's great. And the fact that you're able to be there, because like when we were in Wales, our family was so key to our ministry. If we didn't have our kids, we wouldn't have had a ministry. And so it really is a blessing. I'm so glad that you're able to be there. And the impact, as you talked about, the impact of youth ministries, and I think that's why we need to start getting more involved with them. In fact, I've got a good friend of mine, Dave Campbell, missionary in Wales, and he was telling me, I'm going to grab another mic. This one is irritating. I think it's the green one.
It is the green one.
All right, there we go. I think that's better. When we were in Wales, we were talking because I've been reading a lot about Gen Z. And Gen Z is the generation that we need to be reaching. There's this, he called it in the UK, they wrote a paper about it. It's called the Silent Revival. And the churches in the UK that have been dying and statistically should be dead, there's this revival of Gen Z. We have Gen Zers in this church, and we need to be doing more to reach them. And here are some of the things, and I wrote this down. They're wanting truth. I love that you say all this, because this is so true and it's so in there. This is the truth with just about anybody. They don't come to church because they want to be lied to. They're seeking truth. We need to give them truth. Authenticity, community, love, and biblical truth. They're not looking for it watered down. And so this is so important. And so I've been praying about this for a while. I love hearing this because this is going on in Europe and it's happening here in America too. And that is what we need to be focusing on it. You know why? Because they are the next generation that's going to be the leaders of churches. You're talking about youth camp and the impact. And I love what you said, because we don't see this anymore. We don't see parents saying, hey, why don't you go to Bible college for a year? And I know people that went to Bible college because their parents had told them to, and how God gets a hold of their life. I think that's part of the reason why we don't have young people surrender into ministry. And I think it'd be great if we encouraged our kids in that way. In fact, let's be honest, and I don't mean anything rude by this, because there's balance in everything, but sometimes we see like sports and everything else is so much more important than God. And the reality is probably less than 0.1% are going to become professional athletes, but 100% are going to give an account to Jesus one. And so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with sports. But we need to find balance in that. We need to realize that our kids need to hear about Jesus. And I would even say, challenge them. Go to Bible college for a year and see what God does. Maybe you won't do anything, but you'd be surprised at how many will. I like that you said the greatest need is not money, because it is the greatest need here in the church is laborers. We need laborers here. You need laborers, and we need them all over the world. I was thinking of this, Larry. I think the Yankees, I do. I think they lost out, and I think Jesus won. I really do, because a life lived for the Lord is never a life wasted. I think that's so awesome, and I think you're built more like a football player than a baseball player anyway. And you talk about high suicide rates. We have it here in our community. In fact, I was talking with the coroner, and he was saying we've had more suicides already up to this point this year than we did last year. And it is a really terrible thing. And I think here's what it is these people, right, because they believe lies and they hear things and they feel hopeless. And we need to be the hands and feet of Christ, and they need to see the living hope that we have in Jesus. And so it's not just in Europe. And sometimes I really kind of feel like coming from Europe, that Shelbyville, small little Shelbyville, how much it's like that. But it's just a taste of what the world is like. And we have high suicide rates here in Shelbyville. That's why it's so important people see the hope that we have. That's why it's so important we don't hide in a building. We go out and we live in such a way that they can see Christ. And that's really going to be what makes a difference. Getting a hold of these young people, teaching them truth so that they don't believe the lies, and loving on them, because that's what they need. But here's the reality. It's ugly. Ministering to people is ugly. It takes time. It takes money. It takes frustration. It takes us being willing to just dig into the trenches and do it. And it's dirty. And if we're not willing to get dirty, we're not going to reach them. One day we're going to have to answer to the Lord for what we do. And so I think it's so important that we really do. Debbie, were you born in Belgium? I thought so. You look more American. I don't know what a Belgian looks like. I really don't know. No, I think that's really cool. I was talking with your dad about that the other day, and I remember him telling me that's so awesome. And you go back, in essence, to your people and the impact that you can have. So I feel like we're blessed having them with us. And let's give them another round of applause. Our desire is that we want to, a couple things. Our desire is we want to start being able to set up missions trips and making missions trips. And one of the places I want to go first is to Europe. Now, I know a little secret. I'm going to tell you, Debbie knows how to get all through Europe and all the good spots like Paris and Belgium. And she speaks more than one language. So if you want to go on a trip, that'd be one good place to go. The other thing I was thinking, and this is my last thought, you're talking about campers. If you have camp coming up and you don't have people that have the money, contact us, because I would love to support these kids to go, because I don't think there's any greater investment than that. So let us know, and we'll do what we can to help out how we can. All right, they're going to be at the back. They got their prayer cards. I just think what a testimony. We're thankful. Thank you for being here. Father, we thank you, honestly, for the privilege it's been, and to see how for 48 years that this family has given their lives serving you. And I know just the short years I've been in ministry, how difficult ministry can be. And I know how difficult ministry can be in other countries. And so, Father, we're so thankful. We're so thankful that they're willing to go, but also that they're willing to stay. So, Father, I pray that you bless their health and bless their ministry. I pray for workers. Maybe even tonight, there'd be someone in here tonight that feels called to Belgium. And I know it's a difficult country to get into, but if the Lord would have us there, I know he can make a way. And so, Father, I pray for the Taylors, and I pray for Debbie, and I'm thankful for her willingness to stand beside her parents and to minister and to step up in the impact that she's making with these young adults. And we're so thankful to hear of young adults that have not only gotten saved, but they're even preaching in the church while they're on furlough. And they are the hope of the next generation. I pray that gospel light will never go out in that country. And so, Father, I pray for laborers. I pray for the Taylors. I pray, Father, that you would send more laborers into the world, because there is not a mission field that does not need missionaries, including Shelbyville, Indiana. We've got a mission field right here at our feet. And, Father, help us to be faithful first here and to reaching the people here and in our churches so that we can send out missionaries and we can support them. But I pray, Father, also that you'll call people out of this congregation to go into the uttermost parts of the world. We're thankful for the Yoses in Guatemala. We're thankful for the Cottrells in Thailand. And they're just a small group, a small percentage of people that are reaching a tremendous amount of people in this world. There's not enough labor. 3 people can't reach this world. 1 couple in Guatemala, 1 couple in Belgium, 1 couple in Thailand is not enough. We need multiple families all around the world. And so, Father, I pray for laborers. I pray, Father, that you would call people even tonight. We pray, Father, that you would just be blessed with the time we've spent with them, and then just go before us and just help us to be your hands and feet right here in Shelbyville. In Jesus' name.